Tonight, we're going to be talking about a miracle molecule that is also very close to my heart, one that I really love, one that I've been wanting to use for a long time in my career, but it was number one, too expensive for most companies that I was formulating for. They just didn't want to produce a product because of the sheer expense of it. And number two, for me personally, there wasn't too many scientific studies out there on the particular product, although it has a long history of use. So let's get into that right now. The molecule I want to talk about today, there's actually two. One of them is called Safrana, and the other one is picoxacin. These two molecules happen to be derived from saffron. A lot of people don't know what saffron is. In fact, when I first started taking botanical classes and everything, I literally thought saffron was just a flower. There is a flower, the Crocus sativus, which people call the saffron flower, and that's why I always assumed it was just a flower. But guess what? That's not where the spice saffron comes from. But where the saffron spice comes from is the stigma or styles. A little tiny thread that comes out of the center of the flower is what they harvest. And that's where you get that beautiful aroma, scent, and flavor that we know as saffron. That scent or fragrance, a majority comes from two major phytochemicals found within that. One is easy to remember. It's the Safrana because it sounds like saffron, so Safrana. The other one, picoxacin, has some of the major aroma properties that also provide a lot of the medical benefits that I'll be talking about later as far as clinical research goes. Just to give you an idea of the history of saffron, because of its unique aroma and flavor, it has a very long history in culinary use. In fact, documented history in some Assyrian botanical textbooks that have been found going back to 700 BC. So before some communities and cultures even had writing systems, this was documented in Assyrian texts. There's been Sanskrit texts going back to slightly before that, about 900 BC. But we know even before those texts, it was well known and used for thousands of years, possibly before those texts were even written. That's just the written recorded history that we have of saffron. We know it's been traded and used specifically from the 1500s by the Portuguese, 1600s, 1700s by the Spanish, and then it was grown heavily in Iran. Persia is, what it was called back then, as well as northern India. Now, it was used primarily as a spice in food, but it was also known as a sedative, as a relaxant, as an aphrodisiac. And these are the oral and written traditional uses of it. But I'm going to get into the science and the mechanisms of action later that are just, it's going to blow your mind. Now, regarding the historical trading of saffron, you guys, it has always been, and I'm not going to say it always will be because we never know what's going to come out in the future, but it has always been traditionally known as the world's most expensive spice by weight. On average, a poorly harvested stigmas extracted roughly runs from $4,000 a kilogram to well-known brands being in the $40,000 a kilogram range. In fact, when I was visiting northern India, you guys, I was able to take photos of some of the saffron fields, and I saw them loading up a truck of these saffron bales, but they were probably 10 to 20 kilogram bales. And the truck was fairly full, and there was armed guards all around it because that truck was literally carrying like a couple $1 million worth of saffron from their harvest. However, as I mentioned before, I haven't been able to work with it often as I've formulated products for other companies because of the sheer cost of it. But to me, more importantly, was the lack of actual clinical studies. Again, oral use, traditional use, what we call the ethnobotanical use of the plant, long documented history for relaxation, for calming nerves, widely used as an aphrodisiac, but again, little to no science to support its use until A company that I have long respected and have a great relationship with started to invest in clinical studies. It is already an expensive spice, but when you find a company that is also putting forth the investment into clinical studies, they don't offer that for free. You do those studies, but it raises the price of the saffron extract, right? However, when I first started formulating a product that was going to be my formula for my company, and then Rob and I decided to do LifeWise, I knew for sure that this was still an ingredient that we would have to use, that we were going to use because of the sheer clinical evidence. What I'm about to say, here's my disclaimer. I'm not making any claims to cure, mitigate, treat diseases or anything like that. I am simply citing clinical studies that have been published and were done on a particular brand of saffron, which is trademarked as Affron, A-F-F-R-O-N. That's the particular brand of saffron that I buy simply because it's the only one that I found that has the clinical backing to support my needs to have clinical validation when I'm formulating a product. From here on out, I'm going to be talking about not any saffron extract. I'm going to be talking specifically about Affron saffron, which is found in the LifeWise product called Dream. First and foremost, my friends at GenCore did the clinical study. First, we'll start with improvements in sleep quality. They actually did a published study. It was published in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine, which measured adults with self-reported sleep complaints. So these were people that saying, I don't get a good night's sleep, I wake up feeling tired, I have restless sleep, whatever their complaints were, these were self-reported sleep complaints. Now, the results of this study showed an improved overall sleep quality, a reduction in awakenings after falling asleep, and improved alertness upon waking up. And by the way, these improvements were seen in as little as 7 days. Now, we actually have had several partners at LifeWise who have those watches that monitor their sleep quality. And the cool thing that I've been hearing from them is they literally can document on these watches their number of hours of REM, like stage 3 REM sleep versus non-REM sleep. And sure enough, after taking our product with the Affron saffron in it, they're noticing significant improvements in the number of hours of REM stage sleep. Don't take my word for it or their wristwatch word for it. There's a published study in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine that you can read, and it's on that AffronSaffron.com website. Now, let's go over another published study. This was published in Japanese Pharmacology and Therapeutics, specifically targeted sleep enhancement in adults. All right, we're talking specifically about adults right now. It evaluated the effect of Affron on sleep quality. The results showed a significant improvement in sleep quality associated with occasional sleeplessness, daytime dysfunction from lack of sleep, and signs of abnormal sleep patterns like insomnia and other sleep disorder diseases. All right, now I want to move on to even a more significant study. This was a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled study that further proved what GenCore has already established in these two studies, but they actually did it based on a dose, a low-dose study of only 14 milligrams of Affron, this saffron extract. Taking 14 milligrams of Affron 1 hour before bedtime, the clinical study cited significant improvements in sleep quality, REM sleep, and had a positive action in influencing the effect of sleep hormones. Now, what's a sleep hormone? Everybody knows that one. It's melatonin, right? So they did another study showing that Affron at, again, 14 milligrams boosts the body's natural production of melatonin. So here's something that everybody's heard about, and they probably heard it from their doctors. If you suffer from sleep apnea, or you're worried about giving children melatonin and things like that, every doctor out there says, don't give your child melatonin on a regular basis because it will inhibit their own body's production of melatonin. And you will become reliant on taking melatonin supplements for the rest of your life. That's what every practitioner out there says. But get this, here's this Affron study using saffron extract actually helps support your body's own production of melatonin. So if you're one of those people that have suffered from sleep apnea and melatonin doesn't work for you, or you're reliant on melatonin now because you've taken so many melatonin supplements, this ingredient might give you some hope in that it can assist your body's natural production of melatonin. Now, let's jump specifically to children. Another published clinical study in the Journal of Affective Disorders evaluated the effectiveness of Saffron in children between the ages of 12 and 16. To me, isn't really children, it's more like tweens and teens, right? 12 to 16-year-olds. But the results of this study show that Saffron has helped teenagers, get this, parents, if you have teens, helped these teens maintain a positive mood and alleviated occasional stress, frustration, and tension. We all know there's a ton of pressure on our teens nowadays. Anxiety is a huge issue with teenagers nowadays, social depression. This study actually showed that it helped teenagers maintain a positive mood and alleviated stress, frustration, and tension. And by the way, this was from the child's perspective. So this was actually interviewing these teens after taking the product. In the toxicology study, as part of this, there was no adverse effects or adverse events reported in not one of the teens who had taken Saffron. These studies go on and on and on. There was another one showing improvement in mood in adults. For you ladies out there who might be in your mid to late 30s, 40s, 50s, peri and postmenopausal, there is an amazing study right on the website published showing how it alleviated hot flashes and night sweats in peri and postmenopausal women and improved their mood. I encourage you guys to go to that website. It's saffron.com. You will be able to see why I chose to work with this particular vendor and why I chose to use this particular patented, yes, highly expensive raw ingredient, but I chose it because it benefits you. I'm not going to use second-rate quality ingredients, especially when my name is behind it. This is a patented, clinically proven form of Saffron. And just for the record, you will also figure out the milligram amount that I used, because I used the dose that's actually in those published clinical studies. And I'll just say it right here, it's 14 milligrams. 14 milligrams was the dose that they used in those studies. And they have a couple of studies at 28 milligrams. And so when people talk to me about perimenopausal or postmenopausal, I usually tell them to go ahead and take 2 strips, because the studies on anxiety and mood improvement and things like that were for 28 milligrams a day, which would equal 2 of our strips. But again, that's not my recommendation. That's just going off of what the studies showed. I'm not making suggestions or I'm not giving advice. I'm not saying this is going to cure or alleviate or mitigate any of your problems. I just want you to read the studies and find the information yourself. And because this is a saffron extract and it's been used literally for thousands of years, again, documented, written use dating back to 700 to 900 BC, you guys can experiment with this and know that it's safe. If one strip didn't work for you and you have to take 2 or you have to take 3 or double the dose, just know that it's totally safe. And toxicology studies have shown that you can experiment on your own body with this product and feel safe about it. So that's the miracle molecule that I wanted to share with you guys tonight. Again, if you can remember the 2 active phytochemicals found in saffron, one's called Safrana, the other one is picrochracin. Get on Google, get on your preferred search engine, search this ingredient out, and I think you will fall in love with it just as much as I love this molecule. So thank you for joining me tonight. I'll see you guys next Tuesday night in the lab with Dr. Tracy Gibbs here as Chief Science Officer for LifeWise. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a good evening. Bye.